Hello, my name is Darren Thomas and I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. In this particular video, we're going to be going over how to manipulate the color of the glyphs when you're using Bokeh, of course, which is used with Python. So let's go ahead and see what we can learn. All right, so we're not going to do anything complicated. What we're really going to do here is we're going to focus on the various options that we have when using the glyphs for Bokeh. So let me go ahead and get my initial libraries going here. So here are the libraries that we need. We're going to be using PyDataset, import data. We're going to be using bokeh.plotting, the figure. This is for making our X and Y axes. PyDataset is where we're going to get our data from. For import column data source, this is a data type that we can use for making our different plots. Is a way to format the data, if you will. Output file and show is for, of course, making our actual output file and also for showing the data. And of course, we have pandas as well. So we're going to go ahead and run this. Our data preparation is very simple. Nothing really to talk about. We're just going to load our data in an object called df and just give you a quick picture of it. So what we did here is we used the function data that came from up here from PyDataset. This is the name of the actual data we're using. It's called the Duncan dataset. It's within this particular library. And then we just displayed the first few rows using the .head method. So in the first column, we have the different occupations here, and then we have 4 variables: the job type, the income, education, and prestige. Income, education, and prestige are scored on a scale of 1 to 100, I believe. So you can see that right there. And so this is the data that we are going to be using when we are manipulating our glyphs here. So let's go ahead and look at our initial plot. Let's see here. All right. So normally when you make a scatter plot, all the dots are the color blue, and the size of I think like 5 or so, very small. And so we're just going to manipulate that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to load another library here from bokeh.transform. We're going to load this function called linear CMap, linear color map is what that stands for. And then we're going to load an actual palette here using RDBU8. Now, there are several steps we have to do. We have to create our mapper, and that's going to involve using our linear underscore CMap right here. And we're going to do it twice. The first time I'm going to map one of the actual Y variable. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to show you how you can map other variables that are not on the X and Y axes to provide more information for whoever's consuming your data visualization product. So we got to make our mapper first. I guess the order doesn't matter that much, but that's what we're doing. Then we're going to set up our X and Y axes. Then we set up our glyphs. And then the last 2 lines here is just for actually creating the output. So let's take a look at this first. All right. And so you can see right here, there's several things that are kind of missing from this graph. Like we don't really know what the blue and the dark red really stand for. We can infer that. And so blue means lower values. Again, this is income. And then as you go up the y-axis, the color changes. And so what we did here is we mapped education on the x-axis, and we mapped income on the y-axis. And we also colored our glyphs here based on income. So low income is blue, high income is going to be red. That's why you have this nice trajectory like this. So as people have more and more education, in general, their income levels continue to rise. So nothing surprising there. Now, but the thing is that normally if you already have some data on the y-axis, you wouldn't also color it that way as well, because it's kind of redundant. So often what you will do is you will map a third variable using this little heat spread right here that we have for these different colors right here. So we're going to do that briefly by, instead of mapping using our mapper based on income, we're going to make it based on prestige. Remember, prestige was one of the variables that was there in our original data set at the top. And so what we're going to do here is the same process. I think I kind of skipped over this. So You got to give it the field name. So that's the income. That's the actual variable. The palette color is right here. Then we have the low. So what's the low value for setting up our color mapping here, which is going to be minimum set to the lowest value of prestige, and then the high is going to be set to the maximum value of prestige. Of course, you can change it to something else, but this makes the most sense intuitively. And then right here, this is already reviewed. We've talked about this in other videos, setting up your Y and X and Y axis labels and giving it a title as well. And then of course, manipulating the circles here. So we made the size 16 instead of the default size. And our source comes from up here when we created our source object using the column data source, and the data was set to our DF data frame that we created up here in this cell. So now we're going to see this as it is mapped to prestige. So you can see it's actually very similar, not much of a difference here. From here, as education goes up, prestige goes up as well. And you can see there's a strong correlation between education and income. But now we are able to capture that additional variable of prestige here. And so again, one problem with this particular graph is that we don't know what the colors represent. We would have to add some sort of a legend, which you can do that. Also, the information is missing in the title as well, which is something else you can manipulate. So let's go ahead now and move on to adding the color bar. So for the color bar, the process is mostly the same, but we do have one little piece of information that we're going to add. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so now we're going to import our color bar here. That's the new piece of information. That's the new function. Notice how we're reusing our linear CMap here. We don't have to load this particular function again because it was loaded in the previous cell. For our figure, again, it's mostly the same information. Education and income with the title of education versus income. Our circle, this is all exactly the same. There's nothing new here. Our color is set to our mapper, which we made up here. There's nothing new up here. Also, don't forget that we've set our low value for our mapper to be the lowest value in income from the DF data set. And the lowest high values can be also the highest value from the DF income. In terms of the source, again, remember we made this right here, up here. This is just a way to format data when you want to use it for Bokeh. So that's also set right here. And now we have some new information. So we have the color bar here. That's going to involve using the color bar function. Our color mapper is going to be set to mapper. Remember, our friend mapper is up here, and then we transform it. That's part of what we have to do. And then the width is like how wide will the bar be on the side of the graph. For fig.add_layout, we want to add color bar, this guy that we made right here in this line. And we want to put it to the right of our graph. You can put it to the right, to the left, top, bottom, whatever you want. We're just going to put it to the right. Let's see what this looks like. All right, so this looks exactly the same. You can see almost no difference, except now we have this little bar off to the right-hand side that gives us an indication of what the colors mean there. And so 10 down here is going to be the blues, 80 is going to be the dark reds. You can see now we have some sort of idea of what these are worth. This is very, very important. Of course, you know, if your scale is kind of wild, maybe you have some really large numbers or something, and it's hard to interpret, the color bar can help you with that. And so this is one way to, again, kind of professionalize your graph for your audience. And so again, we would have to find some way to indicate to them what exactly these colors mean, like what variable does it mean? Is it prestige? Is it education? Whatever. And that's something else you can add on your own time. Now, we're going to do our last one, which is going to be coloring things based on categorical variables. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then we will be essentially done. So what we're going to do here is as follows. All right, there we go. Okay, so here's what's going on. We have to load a few more libraries here. So now we're going to have factor_CMap. Remember last time it was linear because linear is for continuous data. And so now we're doing factor, and we're going to also load a different color scheme here from palettes, category 10_5. The first thing we do is we set up our data by using the column data source. All right, that's what we're doing. Underneath this, we're going to have our positions here. So we're going to add a tooltip here. That's the first thing we're going to do so that we can scroll over or look over our data points and get some insights. We've made tooltips before. This is what we want to give it the name of it inside the box. This is the data that we're pulling. Same thing for this one. So we're going to be pulling education and prestige. Then we're going to, of course, set up our position. This is our categorical variables. This will make a lot more sense in a second. After that, we set up our figure. This is mostly the same. Notice how we have our x-axis and our y-axis labels, our title, and we're setting tooltips to the tooltips object we created up here. Now for the circle, this is the data that we're pulling, education and prestige. This is the source of our data, source, we got that from up here. Legend underscore field is going to be by type. So in other words, that's the type variable. Then we got the size of our dot, 16. The fill, this is important right here, of our colors. So we're using our factor underscore CMAP. If we're going to use type as our variable there. Palette is going to be the color. And then the factors that we're going to be using, because sometimes maybe you don't use all of them, is going to be based on positions. So positions is coming from right here. These are the only three choices that we have inside the type variable. Then we have our output file and our show. Let's take a look at this. And so there you go. So you can clearly see, and if we hover over them, you can also get the tooltip. That's an extra little treat for this video. So the orange color jobs are blue collar, and then we have blue color dots that are more white collar and green that are like professional. And so you can see how this is kind of set up. So nice and beautiful. Another great tool that you can use when you're trying to find ways to describe your data using visualizations for your actual audience and or stakeholders. So that's how that works. So let me go ahead and review what we talked about and wrap up this video. So in this particular video, we focused on how to use Bokeh to manipulate the color of glyphs in order to convey more information to our audience. So we started by loading our libraries, obviously. Then of course, we had to prepare our data. In this first example, we were focused on linear mapping. And basically this has to do with coloring continuous data. And so we looked at how to set up our linear underscore CMAP. You have to have the field that you're using or the variable name, the color of the actual palette, which we loaded right here, and then your high and low values, which need to be based on one of the variables within your data set. We then created our figure, which is reviewed for us, and our fig.circle using the dot circle method. Our color was set to our mapper, which we made up at the top, and we set a size. That was it. For the next one, adding the color bar is almost exactly the same as the previous example, except now we added a color bar, which helps to describe what the colors actually mean to the consumer of our data visualization. And then down here below, we learned how to color things not based on continuous data or linear data, but now based on a category or factor data, categorical data. And so that's where you load factor underscore CMAP instead of linear underscore CMAP. We added a tooltip for fun, not necessary, but just to show you how you can combine various tools from Bokeh. For our figure, this is all repeat from the previous example, except we added the tooltips argument. And for our figure.circle or dot circle method, we still have color here, but it's set to factor underscore CMAP. The variable is type, of course, and our factors we're using is position, and then palette is just the color we chose. And that's it. So again, I want to thank you so much for listening and watching this video. My name is Darren Thomas. I am the Director of Educational Research Techniques. Thank you again for watching, and you take care.